The colony of New Trellis was humanity's dream turned fragile reality. A world shared with an alien race, the Trellisians, tall, graceful beings with luminous eyes and translucent skin that shimmered like glass under twin suns. Together they had built cities of silver spires and blue gardens, a fragile peace blooming where once there had been only suspicion. Lieutenant Mara Vance, human security officer, had been stationed there for 3 years. She knew the sound of Trellisian songs at dusk, the smell of their pollen wine festivals, the way children, human and Trellisian alike, played together in the colony squares. For the first time, the universe felt like it might heal. Then the screams came. A transport ship carrying 27 children, 17 human. 10 Trellisian never arrived at the Learning Dome. Hours later, drones found the vessel drifting over the desert ridge, its hull scorched, its interior cold. Mara was among the first responders. She walked through that silent wreckage, her flashlight beam trembling. Tiny seats, small boots, scorched drawings still clutched in lifeless fingers. Something broke inside her that night. And something ancient woke up inside humanity. The broadcast the next morning. The Dominion broadcast appeared on every screen. The Trellisian extremist Kareth Vorn stood beneath his faction's symbol, 3 bleeding suns. His voice echoed like venom. The conquered pact was a mistake, he hissed. Humans spread disease and violence. Their young are not innocent. They are the seeds of corruption. Their loss is mercy. He smiled. Mara's fists clenched so hard her gloves tore. Around her, every human on the outpost stood frozen, stunned into a silence far heavier than rage. But the Trellisians, they wept. For them, to harm younglings of any species was unthinkable, a crime against life itself. The colony fell under curfew. Grieving parents wailed in the streets, and above them, orbiting like silent sentinels, humanity's fleet began to arrive. The arrival, the UNSS Resolute, UNSS Vanguard, and UNSS Pyrrhus entered orbit, black armored warships that blotted out the stars. The sight of them made even Trellisian veterans step back in awe. Humanity had not come to negotiate. They had come to respond. Admiral Yusuf Orlan, commander of the Resolute, sent a single message to the planet's surface. We are not diplomats today. We are parents. It was the calm before the storm, the kind that makes planets hold their breath. Mara was assigned to the ground team that would locate the Dominion's base, a rumored fortress deep inside the Irith ravines, a canyon world where no sun reached, only blue lightning and silence. She didn't sleep for 2 days. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those empty seats on the transport. Into the ravines, the strike team moved before dawn. 12 humans, 8 Trellisian peace guards. For the first time, they fought side by side, bound by grief instead of politics. The ravines were a maze of black stone and whispering wind. Strange lights flickered across the canyon walls. Dominion scanners. As the team crept deeper, they found signs of life. Shattered cages, blood trails, scorched handprints. Human handprints. Small ones. Mara's voice cracked in her calm. They brought them here. Her Trellisian partner, Vera, lowered his staff. Then this place will become sacred ground, after we cleanse it. A faint hum grew louder. Energy shields ahead. Dominion patrols. Then Admiral Orlan's voice cut through the static. Ground team, confirm location. The fleet has visual on the stronghold. Mara's eyes narrowed. We see it. Coordinates transmitting. And Admiral. Yes, Lieutenant? She took a deep breath. Make them remember this day. Understood. The sky burns moments later, the world split open. From orbit, precision strikes rained down, tungsten rods and kinetic bursts that shattered Dominion defenses without touching civilian sectors. The ground quaked, dust turned to fire, and the ravines glowed like the heart of a dying star. Dominion soldiers swarmed out, tall, insectoid figures with shimmering armor, hissing war cries about purity and vengeance. Mara's rifle barked plasma. The peace guards unleashed blue arcs of energy that cut through the darkness. The air filled with light and ash and the metallic scent of ozone. Every step forward cost blood. Every scream echoed in both human and alien throats alike. Mara's squad pushed through the gates, breaching the fortress interior. There, in a circular chamber pulsing with biotech lights, they found them. 3 survivors. 3 children, covered in soot, trembling, their eyes wide but alive. Mara dropped her weapon and ran, her armor clanging as she knelt beside them. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You're safe now." "We're here." But behind her, a shadow moved. The face of Hatred Kareth Vorn emerged from the chamber's rear archway, his armor cracked, his crest torn. He limped forward, unarmed but defiant. "So," he rasped, "the apes have teeth after all." Mara spun, her rifle trained on him. "You killed children." "They were human," Kareth said coldly. "And your kind kills more every year than I ever could. You burn planets for minerals. You turn ecosystems into profit. You are not innocent." Admiral Orlan stepped into the chamber, his black armor gleaming with dust and firelight. He stared at Kareth, expression unreadable. "You think this is about innocence?" Orlan asked softly. "You think war justifies this?" Kareth sneered. "You humans act like you're young or divine." "They are not." Orlan crouched down, looked the alien in the eyes. His voice dropped to a low, terrible calm. "You made one mistake, Kareth. You thought humans fight wars." "We don't." Kareth's eyes flickered in confusion. "We end them." Outside, the fleet's final bombardment began. Not annihilation, but precision justice. One by one, Dominion bases across the continent were vaporized, leaving only glass and silence. Kareth's sneer faltered as the chamber walls trembled. "You can't erase us all," he hissed. Orlan stood tall. "You're right. We'll leave your ruins, as warnings." He turned to Mara. "Get those kids out of here." Mara hesitated. "What about him?" Orlan's gaze never left the alien. "He'll watch the sky fall." 7. The aftermath hours later, the Dominion was gone. The fleet withdrew to orbit, leaving rescue teams and healers behind. The survivors, human and Trilician, worked together to bury the fallen, build memorials and tend to the scarred earth. Mara stood by the canyon's edge, the silver plains stretching into the distance. Her armor scorched and her spirit heavy. Vera joined her, his crest low in mourning. "Your kind," he said quietly, "burns with a fire that frightens even the stars." Mara exhaled. "We didn't want this, but they crossed a line we can't allow." Vera nodded slowly. "Now I understand. You protect what you love, so fiercely that it becomes your weapon." She looked up at the sky, at the faint silhouette of the Resolute gliding among the stars. "If they ever try again," she said, "they'll learn all over." Moo. The message weeks passed. The colony began to heal. Schools reopened. Laughter, tentative and soft, returned to the streets. Then one morning, every communications beacon across the sector lit up, a new transmission, unmistakably human. It wasn't encrypted, it wasn't hidden. It was a statement. "To all civilizations in listening range, we are humanity. We build, we create, we nurture. But if you harm our children, understand what comes next. You will not face soldiers. You will face parents. And parents do not wage war. They end it." The message spread faster than any fleet could travel. Across the galactic net, species listened in silence. The line between peace and vengeance had never been clearer. The legacy of the fallen a year later, New Trellis stood renewed. The human and Trilician flags flew side by side. Where the children's transport had crashed, a monument now stood, a sculpture of 2 small hands, one human, one alien, reaching upward together. The inscription beneath was simple. For every child, on every world. Admiral Orlan retired soon after. Some said he couldn't bear the weight of command anymore. Others said his mission was complete. Mara stayed. She became head of Joint Planetary Defense, training both species in the same program. Her motto, compassion first, but never unguarded. Every evening she visited the monument. Sometimes she spoke to it. Sometimes she just listened to the wind whispering through the blue grass. And somewhere far away, in the dark corners of the galaxy, those who still hated humanity whispered the same fearful truth. Never touch their young. Epilogue. Generations later, children on New Trellis learn the story in school. They listen wide-eyed as their teachers tell them how one terrible act forged an unbreakable alliance. They learn how humanity's wrath was not born from cruelty, but from love, and how that love reshaped the galaxy's understanding of power. For all their flaws, all their history of war and greed, humans had one virtue no empire could match. They protect their own, and across the stars, Carved into monuments, burned into memory, the message endures. You hurt human children? Do you realize what comes next? It had been 3 years since the Dominion fell. 3 years since New Trellis saw its skies burn with vengeance and light. But peace, Mara had learned, doesn't come clean. It leaves behind ashes that never truly fade. Every morning she walked the canyon ridge where the Dominion fortress once stood, now a green valley, healed by human terraformers and Trilician biotechnicians. The ravines where screams once echoed now shimmered with blue moss and silver streams, yet every step, every whisper of the wind carried memory. Children played in the rebuilt colony below, their laughter rising like birdsong, but Mara still heard the echoes of those she couldn't save. Even after the war, the nightmares remained, and now rumors had begun to stir again, whispers of Dominion survivors gathering beyond the outer rim. Small, broken cells, yes, but venomous. The galaxy, it seemed, had not learned its lesson. The signal it began with a ping at Arrow 342 local time. The deep space sensor array detected a faint transmission, encrypted but familiar. The same trinary pattern used by Kareth Vorn's old Dominion network. Mara stood in the dim light of the command center, watching the data stream across the hollow display. The coordinates pointed to the Orphean Reach, a lawless stretch of nebula beyond known space. Her adjutant, a young Trilician named Saren, looked up nervously. Could be scavengers, or survivors, Mara frowned. Or believers. She opened a secure channel to orbit. Within minutes, Admiral Orlan's face appeared. Older now, retired officially, but still carrying the kind of authority that made rooms fall silent. Mara, he greeted. I told you to stay in peace, she smiled faintly. Peace doesn't answer distress calls, Admiral, he sighed. I should have known better than to think you'd sit still. When she showed him the data, his eyes darkened. That's not just a signal, he said quietly. It's bait. Ghosts of the Dominion, the UNSS Horizon, a stealth reconnaissance cruiser, left orbit under sealed orders. Its mission, investigate, confirm, and if necessary, eliminate. Mara led the task group, half human, half Trilician. Among them was Vera, her old comrade from the Ravine assault, now captain of the Trilician Honor Guard. As the horizon slipped into the Orphean clouds, the view outside turned haunting. Ribbons of gas swirling in violet hues like galaxies trapped in amber. Lightning crackled silently through the dust. Then they saw it, a structure vast, jagged, and impossible. A living fortress, grown out of asteroid stone and organic matter, and floating before it, a holographic sigil. 3 bleeding suns. Vera's crest stiffened. The Dominion lives, Mara felt her chest tighten. Then we finish what we started. The return of Kareth inside the fortress. They found more than remnants. They found a movement. Thousands of Trilician zealots, scarred and hollow-eyed, working under a single banner. And at their center, a figure thought dead, scarred beyond recognition, but unmistakably alive. Kareth Vorn. Half his body was now cybernetic, his voice metallic, distorted by implants. But the hatred in his eyes burned the same. You came. He rasped through the comms. Good. I wanted you to see what you created. He gestured behind him. A colossal chamber filled with cocoons, glowing faintly blue. Inside them were children, not human, not Trilician, but hybrid. Mara froze. What have you done? Kareth smiled, a terrible broken grin. I am fixing both our species. You called us monsters for killing your young, so I made new ones. Stronger, fearless, without guilt. Orlan's voice came over the comms, steady but grim. Lieutenant, that base cannot be allowed to live. Mara stared at the cocoons. There are children in there. Abominations, Kareth hissed. Born from your weakness. Vera stepped forward, his eyes glowing with sorrow. They are innocent. And you would damn them to prove a point. Kareth raised his hand. Energy flared. I already have. The Battle of Orphean Reach. The fortress erupted. Alarms blared as human and Trilician soldiers stormed the halls. The Dominion fought like cornered beasts, desperate, fanatical, relentless. Mara and Vera led the charge through bio-steel corridors that pulsed like living veins. Plasma fire lit the darkness. The air reeked of ozone and burning resin. At the fortress core, the hybrids began to stir, small hands pressed against the inside of the glowing cocoons. They were awake, confused, afraid. "Get them out," Mara shouted. Vera and Saren began tearing open the pods while Mara covered them, firing at Dominion guards rushing from the upper tiers. One of the hybrids, a little girl with silver eyes, reached out, clutching Mara's gloved hand. "It hurts," she whispered. Mara knelt. "I know. But we're going to make it stop." Behind them, Kareth screamed orders, activating the fortress's core reactor. "If I die," his voice thundered, "then so will every trace of your weakness." The reactor began to overload, a sun being born inside stone. Mara hit her comm. "Admiral, evacuation compromised. Reactor going critical!" Orlan's voice came, grim as ever. "Get out. I'll handle the rest." The last command on the Horizons bridge, Orlan watched the readings spike. The fortress would detonate in minutes, enough to wipe out half the fleet. His officers looked to him, waiting for orders. He thought of those children, hybrids or not, born of violence, but still children. He made his choice. "Divert all power to tractor beams. Lock onto the core. We pull it out manually. Sir, that will tear the ship apart." Then we die trying. The Horizon dove toward the fortress, engines screaming, beams locking onto the reactor. Energy surged. The ship shuddered. Systems failing one by one. Mara, still on the ground, watched the burning sky as the Horizon descended, its hull glowing white-hot. Orlan's voice crackled through her comm, faint but steady. "Tell them. Humanity remembers." The comm cut out. A flash of light split the clouds. Then, silence. The aftermath. When Mara awoke, she was in a medbay. The hybrid children were alive. So was Vera. The fortress was gone, but the Horizon had vanished. In its place, only a field of molten debris shimmered across the nebula. Orlan and his crew had sacrificed everything to pull the reactor out and eject it into deep space before it exploded. The galaxy mourned them as heroes. But for Mara, grief was a quiet, heavy thing, the kind that sat behind her ribs and never left. The hybrid children were taken into protection by the conquered council. The Trilicians, after much debate, declared them children of unity. Humanity agreed. For once, both species saw beyond vengeance. Mara adopted one, the little girl with silver eyes. She named her Lyra. Years later, 10 years passed. New Trailus thrived, its cities brighter and its people wiser. The alliance between humanity and the Trilicians was no longer a treaty. It was family. Mara had left the military, choosing instead to teach at the Academy of Peacekeeping. Lyra, now 15, trained under her, fast, intelligent, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. One evening, as they walked near the memorial ridge, Lyra asked quietly, "Is it true what they say? That humans destroyed a whole army for the children?" Mara smiled softly. "Not for vengeance, Lyra, for protection." Lyra tilted her head. "And would they do it again?" Mara looked toward the stars where somewhere the Horizon still drifted as dust and legend. "If they had to," she said, "yes," without hesitation. The return of the signal. That night, a faint message appeared in the deep space channels, distorted, ancient, but unmistakable. "This is Admiral Orlan. Mission complete. Reactor contained. If you hear this, tell them humanity keeps its promises." The signal faded into static. Mara stood in the observatory, tears glistening in her eyes. "We heard you, sir," she whispered. "We always will." 10. Legacy of the Outcry years turned to decades. Lyra grew into an ambassador, representing both species before the Galactic Council. Whenever she spoke, her voice carried the echoes of two worlds that had once been enemies, and became something greater. And in every speech, she ended with the same words. "There are many kinds of strength in the universe, but only one born of love strong enough to end wars, the strength of those who protect the innocent." Behind her hung a memorial, a stone carving of 3 symbols intertwined: the human sun, the Trilician crest, and a child's handprint in silver. The inscription below read, "Humanity may forgive, but they never forget." And across the stars, whenever whispers of cruelty rose again, whenever someone dared think to harm the helpless, They remembered what happened at New Trellis and the Orphean Reach. The name human had become more than a word. It was a warning. And a promise. Epilogue, the Song of Two Worlds, on the 100th anniversary of the Outcry. The Alliance launched a ship, UNSS Resolute 2, its hull engraved with the names of every fallen soul. Its mission, exploration, not war. As it left orbit, Lyra stood beside Mara, now gray-haired but strong. "Do you think they'll ever forget what we did?" Lyra asked. Mara smiled faintly. "No, but that's not what matters. What matters is that we remember why." Lyra turned to her, eyes glowing with human warmth and Trilisian light. "Because someone hurt the children," Mara nodded, "and we made sure it never happened again." They watched as the Resolute 2 vanished into the stars, its engines trailing light like a promise fulfilled. And somewhere, far beyond the reach of any world, a voice seemed to whisper through the void. "Proud, eternal, human. You hurt human children. Do you realize what comes next?"